Well, Kurt, it's great to talk to you. And, everybody here in Chicago wants to hear your take on Caleb Williams. First off, I would like to ask, what were your expectations coming from preseason to game one? And then how did he perform in your eyes with those expectations you had on him?
Yeah, I always temper my expectations for any guy, no matter how good I think they can be, no matter how good they were in college. You understand that it's a jump to the NFL, and very few guys come into this league hitting the ground running and not going through some growing pains or, figuring it out. And so that's the first thing is that I don't have the same expectations that I think a lot of people throw on these young guys, like Caleb. Oh man, he could be the next Patrick Mahomes. So automatically the visual for everybody is, oh, I got to see some Patrick Mahomes, even from week one. And that to me is not how I look at it. Um, I think what you saw in college has translated a little bit to what you saw yesterday. And, Caleb, to me, he's got some really good things that he does from a technique standpoint. When he's throwing it to his number one guy, he looks solid. He gets loaded, he gets set, the ball comes out well, he's accurate with the football. But the questions become when number wasn't isn't open, and he's got to process from there, process mentally and process physically with his feet to get to get set up, to work through his progressions, to do it quickly, and not have to try to get into that creating world. And so yesterday, I felt like he made some good throws, but he got stuck on his number one guy too much and for too long, and wasn't able to kind of work through that. And so that was game number one. I think it translates into stats and things that I guess you could see by just watching the game from the big picture. They were fortunate to get out of there with a win because of the plays on the defensive side. But still a lot of work to be done for Caleb in terms of playing the position and not relying on the athleticism, but relying on the skills that you have to play quarterback.
All right. So, Kurt, that sounds hauntingly and frighteningly familiar to those of us who've lived here and worked through 4 years of Mitch Trubisky and 3 years of Justin Fields, right? So the question is, does he have what it takes to learn to be that anticipatory passer in the pocket and get better at this over the course of even his rookie season? Does he have what those guys did not?
Well, I think it's too early to say, and it's hard to say, because even some guys that seem to be able to do it in college struggle doing it in the NFL because of the complexity and because of the speed of the game. And so I don't know if we know the answer to that yet. One thing that I will say, and I haven't studied. Obviously, the Bears are in a new situation with the new OC, and I'll be able to study it throughout the course of the season. But I'm a believer that when you're asking a quarterback to run more pure progression stuff, and so for those that are out there listening, I know we've talked about it in the past, but pure progression stuff is basically a play where you say no matter what the coverage is, no matter what goes on, this receiver is number one, this next guy is number two, this next guy is number three, and you're going to continually progress that way no matter what the coverage is. And then on top of that, it's more about reading your receiver than it is reading defenders. And so I'm a guy that likes to play, the game in what I call defender read. So I would have two routes. Let's just say one's high, one's low. And I would read the defender in between them saying, okay, are you going to cover the high one or the low one? And the timing of both of those throws is exactly the same for me because I'm reading that defender. When I get to the top of my drop, that defender tells me where to go. I'm reading one and two at the same time. In pure progression, you're coming back and really looking at your receiver to see if you think he's open at the top of your route. So then, or the top of your drop. So when you get to the top of your drop, you're on number one. If you decide he's not open, then you have to work to number two. Then you have to decide that guy's not open. Then you work to number three. And so with that pure progression stuff, it lends itself to what I was talking about with Caleb, where I felt like he was coming back and looking at his number one guy to see if he felt he was open and was getting stuck there longer than I would like to see him stuck there. But some of that becomes a natural part of playing in pure progressions because instead of looking at that defender and being able to decipher and get through your reads quicker, you're stuck on one guy. You're trying to decipher, is he open? Am I there a little bit early and now I'm waiting on him? And then can I quickly progress to number 2, 3, and 4? And can I do it on time where I can actually make those throws and be successful? And so I think there's a lot of pieces is what I'm saying. A lot of pieces right now on who is Caleb? What are his skill sets in terms of what will translate to the NFL? Can he be the guy that we're talking about? And then how much of the system lends itself to helping him be able to read two guys at once, being able to get his eyes on the right defender so he can get the ball out quicker and feel more comfortable with that sort of stuff are questions that, still are to be answered as we see this with more time.
Do most young quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks now, like is Jaden Daniels doing that same pure progression stuff? Are they running that stuff for him, or are some of the young quarterbacks getting a chance to learn what you're talking about with reading the defense instead?
I believe there's a lot more pure progression stuff in our league than there used to be. It's not everywhere. We can go back a year ago to C.J. Stroud in Houston. They didn't. They gave him more full field reads where see the coverage, find your defenders, get the ball out, and he was great at it, and you saw the results of it. But I do believe there's a lot more of the pure progression around the league, and I'm a firm believer that it hurts the development of quarterbacks, even though it seems like it would be an easier theory. Oh, just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 every time. You don't have to worry about anything. Just read your guy. But it slows down the processing. And this idea of, is a guy open? Is a guy not open? What's the timing of how long do I get to wait on number 1 before I have to get to number 2? If I'm reading a defender, he's telling me. So first, I feel like I'm in a great position to make the right decision. But then the timing of those 2 routes is almost exactly the same. So I can be on time. I don't have to worry about hanging on a guy too long because that defender, if I've got a good concept, should be moving or should be telling me where to go with the football. And so, I think, with a lot of the young, I haven't watched all the young guys, but yeah, I think Jaden Daniel in Washington, they do a lot of that same sort of stuff. It was the same stuff that they did in Arizona with Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. And so, yes, I think it's running rampant in the league. And although sometimes it can work out unbelievably well, I think on a normal basis, it's not the greatest stuff, in my opinion, in terms of how I like to play the position. And I think it hurts and slows down the processing of quarterbacks in a lot of times.
It's 670 The Score. It's Spiegs and Pat Manley on the afternoon show.
Kurt, I'm a kind of an O-lineman at heart, and I know how important they are to you guys as quarterbacks and understanding protections as well. When you look through that tape, he's got to communicate with the centers. Everybody's got to know all 10 positions out there, but especially the center and understanding protections. How did you see he did in the game of understanding the blitzes that Coach Wilson brought from the Titans?
I didn't think it was horrible from that perspective. I think that's, again, a thing with young quarterbacks is getting comfortable, not only with changing protections, but being able to recognize who that guy is that you're hot off of. And again, going back to the pure progression stuff, a lot of times with the pure progression, we're not being hots. We're trying to protect things, and you're trying to beat the pressure with that first throw because you're looking at that first throw every single time. And so, but I didn't, that wasn't something that necessarily jumped off page to me when I was watching the tape. Was like, oh my gosh, they can't get the protections right. Oh my gosh, there's free runners all the time. And, there was definitely some issues up front at times, but, just watching the tape and watching, quarterback play as a whole, because I always like to be very judicious when I watch it. And hey, if a guy misses a protection or they screw it up, I don't blame the quarterback, even if he throws an interception or makes a bad decision. You see all of that. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't something that I looked at and go, oh, Caleb didn't have much of a chance because of the protection. That was a couple plays, but overall, I felt like he had time to be able to do a little bit better processing and getting through his reads. And as I said earlier, was just a little bit stuck on getting back, trying to see that first guy, trying to get it to that first guy instead of really working through things and feeling comfortable doing that.
As a young quarterback, what was it like for you? How much did you lean on the center or were you pretty darn good at understanding protections back in 1999 throughout your entire career? How did that progression work for you throughout your career?
Yeah, I mean, let's first say that, when I got back into the league, 98, 99, I mean, I was 27, 28 years old.
Oh, right.
And so I wasn't a guy that was just straight out of college. And I had played a lot of football, even though it was arena and those types of things. But I often tell the young quarterbacks that I work with is that outside of studying our offense, in terms of studying the plays, knowing what my answers are, knowing where, my hots are, all of that stuff, the second most important thing that I spent time on every single week was protections. And I wasn't in a lot of systems and I didn't like it. I wasn't trying to solve every answer before the snap. I think sometimes that can weigh quarterbacks down going, okay, try to figure out what the blitz is this time, especially in this day and age, because there's so many good athletes and so many different schemes. It's hard to know where guys are coming from and where the blitz is going to be so I can try to pick it up. What I wanted to know was, who are the offensive line in the back responsible for, and who am I responsible for? So if I'm responsible for the Sam linebacker, I only need to worry about the Sam linebacker. You can walk up the Mike and the Will and jockey the safeties around and all of that stuff, and it doesn't mean anything to me. I knew where my eyes needed to be. Sam linebacker, he didn't come, great. I should be good. I should know where to go with the football, or if that Sam comes, where's my hot? Where's my quick throw? How do I beat him with the play? And so I was so much about playing the game fast after the snap and not trying to solve everything before the snap, because I had the answers. Now, if I knew without a doubt they were bringing the Sam and I wanted to slide the protection, great. I always had the ability to do that, but I wasn't slowing myself down trying to answer all of this stuff. To me, it was about building in answers in the play, building in answers with quick throws, knowing if the Sam's the hot in this situation, I'm going to have a couple options if he comes to beat him with a throw. And that played to my strengths. It allowed me to play fast. And that was my goal every time out. And it's why I studied those two things more than anything else. Because I do think that's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to ask any quarterback to do, is to solve all the problems. But it's hard to ask a young quarterback to be ready for all of that and then put it on him when the Sam comes and we don't have an answer for it. And you say, oh, you should have slid the protection. Well, I got a lot of stuff to worry about here. If I'm trying to worry about getting that right every time, it's going to be hard for me to really play good football. And so that was more of my approach than trying to do the opposite.
That first start for Kurt Warner in 99 with the Rams, 28 of 44, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns. You targeted Isaac Bruce 11 times. That was a good idea. And Marshall Faulk ran for 59. And Pat, you were interested in the offensive line that he had to work with as well, right?
That's pretty strong. I mean, that's awesome. Like what you said, Kurt, you said you got rid of the ball so quick. We played you that year in 99, I think December or something, whatever, when I was here in Chicago. We played you down there. I'd never seen the ball move like that. Like that blew me away. You saw the matchup, like Barry Minner trying to cover Marshall Faulk. You saw it right away. Boom. Here you go, Marshall. Do your thing. And that to me, to watch you, and I was a young player in my second year, to watch you operate that way, that's when you set a standard to me. That's what quarterbacks are supposed to look like. And that's what I've wanted for Justin Fields, Mitch Trubisky, and obviously want that for Caleb Williams. But, you can't answer this. Can he get there? But what you kind of see from him, are you encouraged?
Well, I mean, I'll just say I've seen some good things.
Okay. You just got to make us feel better here in Chicago, Kurt.
He didn't get rattled, Kurt. Okay. He didn't seem to get rattled. He didn't give the ball away. We're taking solace in that today. Yeah. That he didn't seem to crumble. I mean,
it's one game. Like let's give him some time. Right. Like there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectation on him, and so it's one game. All I can go off of is what I saw in the game. So if you're asking me with what I saw yesterday, if that's a great quarterback, the answer is no. Right. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have all of that ability, and he's just got to get more comfortable. And I think we knew that would be part of it. So much of his game in college was creativity. If you don't see it with your first guy, maybe your second guy, go create. I'm not sure he's a good enough athlete at this level to live in that world. He's going to make some of those plays, but he's not going to run around for 5 or 6 seconds at this level And we saw that yesterday. A couple times he tried to make some moves and run around, and they got him. They caught him. And so that's not going to be the world he has to live in. So that's where the growth has to happen. This is what you've always done. You're not going to be able to do that as much at this level. So now you've got to learn how to change game with it. And again, some of the things that you were talking about with me back in '99 is we had answers.
Yeah,
I understood the answers. I understood the timing. That's another thing that I saw all throughout the league that I believe comes from a lot of the college game and probably even the high school, where everybody lives in shotgun now. And so shotgun drops don't connect to the routes like drops under center. So, for those listening at home, when I'm under center and I'm getting the ball as soon as I say hut, hike, whatever, I'm getting the ball, I'm taking a 3-step drop that connects with a 3-step timing of a route on the outside, a hitch, a slant, a quick out, right? When I take a 5-step drop, that's usually connecting with something from 10 to 16 yards down the field. So I've got the ball in my hands. I can develop that timing. I know what that 5-step drop timing is. Throw it. 7 steps is that next level. When you get in the shotgun, there is not that same sense of timing, because when I say hut, how's the ball get back there? How fast does it get back there? How many steps do I take once the ball is in my hand? And so you're seeing a lot of quarterbacks that are set too early. So you get set too early. Now, once you're set as a quarterback, you feel like you should be throwing it. Mm-hmm. So if I set too early, now I'm getting through my reads too fast, right? I'm not seeing what I need to see. I'm trying to move around and find somebody open, as opposed to if I take another second, now I get a chance to fully see what the defense is doing. I get to read it out. My guys are coming out of their routes. I can throw with timing back to what we did in '99. And so it was tying feet to the routes. The other side of it, if I'm taking too deep of a drop, now I'm missing things that are popping open right away because I'm not ready to throw it. Now I'm playing catch up. So I see a lot of those issues around the league where these guys haven't developed that sense of timing in their mind so they can connect their feet to it. And we're playing too fast or we're playing too slow, and we're missing huge opportunities on the field because of it. And so another element, a guy like Caleb and a lot of guys around the league have to get better at. The coaching has to be better at developing that timing, or, defenses are just too good, right? If a guy's open at the top of his route and you take an extra second, by the time you throw it, that defensive back is going to be breaking on it and breaking that football up. You got to anticipate that. You got to see it, and you got to be ready ahead of time. And there's a lot of issues there with that. Again, some issues I saw with Caleb in that regard. And so there's a lot of things. And again, for those in Chicago, it wasn't just Caleb. It was all over the league. He's a rookie. He's in his first game. So I don't think it's time to panic by any means. It's just there has to be a lot of growth made with Caleb and a lot of other quarterbacks in the league if we're going to get a chance to see all of that physical potential of his and what he can be at this level. There's got to be growth in some of those other areas.
Kurt, all I'm going to be doing now is thinking about pure progression versus what? Defender keys? Is that the other way of reading?
Yes, I call it a full field read, meaning your reads change based on looking at the full field. This corner's off, this side they're rolling, they're playing cover 2, they're playing cover 3, and then defender read. Meaning we're trying to put a defender in conflict on every play, right? Whatever sport you've ever played, if a team's playing a zone coverage, the goal is what? Overload the zone. If they've got 2, we want 3. If they've got 1, we want 2. And, the idea is, okay, right, you have a 2-on-1 in basketball. What's the idea? I'm going to go to the basket and score unless that defender comes and guards me. Then I'm going to throw it to the other guy.
It seems a lot simpler, doesn't it, Pat?
Yeah, that's what Kurt. It's funny because you got the smart ones and the great ones like you. You make it sound so simple, but it is the hardest position in all of sports.
Well, and again, no question. I think it's the hardest position in all of sports too. But if you have a good concept, I always use the term: make the game as simple as possible, as quickly as possible. So if I know where I'm trying to attack on a particular play, I've got that high and I've got that low. What I need to do is I need to find the defender in that zone, right? And that's where it's simplified. If I know there's only one defender in that zone that can cover the high and the low, I just need to get my eyes there as soon as I can get my eyes there and read him. And that's where it can seem easy, because that's what I'm saying. If you get your guys to that guy, he can't be right? He's either got to go high or he's got to go low, as long as I make the right decision. The question becomes understanding all the concepts you have on a particular play, and against what coverage do you go to that particular guy? What coverage do I go to the other side and read a defender on the other side? That's where it gets more complicated. But if you can get your eyes in the right spot on a good quality concept, the game really isn't that complicated, because it does come down to one guy or two guys. Maybe I got to read a safety first and then an underneath linebacker or underneath player. But knowing where your eyes need to start and where they need to go is the key to playing this position from that perspective. And that's where a lot of these guys just have to get better. And maybe it's some coaching, right? Trying to figure out how to make it simpler for these quarterbacks through the coaching, right? Little keys. Hey, this concept over here is good if the corner is off position, right? I don't care if you know what the coverage is with all 11 guys. Is the corner off? If the corner's off, read the outside linebacker. If the corner rolls, now I need you to go to the other side and read the hook defender on the other side. So trying to create little keys like that can simplify those aspects of the game for these young quarterbacks.
Kurt Warner's making us all smarter about quarterback play in the National
Hall of Fame
Football
player,
League.
Hall of Fame coaching right there, guys.